is Brian Thompson, the voice of TCW Wrestling, and right now, you're listening to Hardcore Wrestling Radio.
In conjunction with Hardcore Wrestling Radio and WGS TV, we'd like to welcome you to this very special interview. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. I am the Wrestle Gamer himself, Double B, Billy Bujo. Allow me to introduce my co-host of the evening. He is the host of Hardcore Wrestling Radio himself. He is the illuminous one, the shining star, Rick Starr. Rick, how you shining?
I'm shining pretty brightly. Thank you, Billy.
From YouTube.com/LanceMossTV, he is the incomparable Lance Moss. Lance, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
From the hood over on Instagib, ladies and gentlemen, he is the Bay Area MVP, known as Will. Will, what's up?
The Beast. Hashtag the Beast.
Well, hashtag Bully of the Year. He is the current GCW heavyweight champion representing the Trilogy. He is the big mother trucker himself, Trucker Jones. Trucker, how you doing?
Good. How about you, Billy?
I'm doing just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me the honor and the privilege of welcoming our very special guest. You can catch him whenever you can on traditional championship wrestling, whether it be on Cox Sports Television, whatever cable provider you have, or on YouTube, TCW Wrestling Online, or on TCWWrestling.com. It is an honor from one commentator to introduce another commentator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brian Thompson. Mr. Thompson, how are you? And thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Man, I am fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity to come on your show this evening or whatever time of day it is someone is listening. It's an honor to be here. Looking forward to it.
Now, one thing I've always wanted to know when I started covering TCW over on WGS TV is like some of its history, some of its background into the company. What can you tell us about how TCW got started?
Oh, man, back a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, Matt Riviera and some of his management team decided to really ramp things up. Matt has worked in the wrestling business for a number of years, had promoted all throughout Arkansas, and had a vision. And Matt had put this thing together. He had actually, Matt has wrestled around the country, even done some international tours, but he had looked around, looked for talent, had pieced it together, and little by little TCW came to be. And I believe 2009 is actually around the first official show under the TCW banner. And ever since then, it's been off to the races. Each show has seemed to grow up on the other one, and it's become really what you see today on a number of places. You mentioned the YouTube channel and also on the Cox Sports and nationwide for those that have Dish Network and DirecTV. You can catch it Friday nights at 1 a.m. Eastern, midnight Central Time on Pursuit Channel. So that's just the early background, and things have just taken off from there.
Now, what have been? Are you guys solely based out of Arkansas, or are there other places around the country that you guys travel with TCW?
Well, the corporate office is, of course, in the Little Rock, Arkansas metropolitan area. However, TCW has begun a touring schedule going nationwide. Most recently, we've been in Mississippi, had a show in Meridian, Mississippi some weeks ago, coming soon in Nashville, Tennessee. Have been in addition to, I mentioned the Little Rock area, shows there, shows all throughout Northwest Arkansas. We've been in Northeast Arkansas. A lot of tours. We did a show in Memphis, Tennessee. So even though it is Little Rock metropolitan area based, there's been events all over the region, so all over a multiple state area, and it's only going to grow from there as 2013 wraps up and 2014 is on the horizon.
Has it been difficult to branch out into other networks where fans are not really aware of your product at the first?
Well, certainly it makes the job of the local promoter a lot harder because he has to certainly, familiarize the fan bases with, what TCW is and who some of the local stars are, some of the stars of the TCW brand are that maybe some of those fans might not be familiar with. But however, we also have a roster of, I think the other day I used the terminology of legends, today's stars and tomorrow's heroes or something along those lines. But You have a good mixing pot there. So if a wrestling fan sees a flyer or a commercial or a billboard and they see Hacksaw Jim Duggan on that billboard or they see Tommy Dreamer, you're going to catch their attention versus seeing a picture of a bunch of guys that wrestle in an old Dollar General every weekend and taking nothing away from them. They're dreamers and they have their opportunity too. But that makes it easier to walk into that market. So and usually you have a lot of good foot soldiers on the ground doing the promotional aspect. Plus, again, now that's saying more so in the past. Now you have the added avenue of having established that internet market through the YouTube channel and also establishing yourself nationwide on Pursuit. A lot of local affiliates. You mentioned Cox Sports. That covers a pretty big area over in eight states in the South. Plus you add some of the local affiliates. We're on in Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, Missouri. I know Shreveport area, there's a couple of networks there. So, yeah, you have some really good penetration as far as television is concerned. So when they see that they're recognizing the TCW brand. So that aspect where a couple years ago, you're right, it was a little more difficult to walk in the door. It's becoming easier because people are recognizing TCW all over the planet.
What do you feel, in your mind, Mr. Thompson, separates TCW from a conventional wrestling promotion?
Well, TCW in a lot of ways is a throwback to days gone by, that style of professional wrestling that a fan enjoyed in the past. Yet it's modern. It's not we're not going back to 1950, 1960 era, but we give you, it's almost like a modernized version. If say a promotion like a Mid-South was still around, and if the territory days still exist and those type of promotions are still around, this is the evolution of that. It's comparable to Mid-South. There's avenues of Smoky Mountain, National Wrestling Alliance, Jim Crockett Promotions. There's pieces of all that, and that's from your management being fans of that type of professional wrestling. We feel there's a niche void on a national basis for that style of wrestling.
Very interesting. And what if we could talk to you about some of the talent that you worked with in the past? I know
Sure.
Just recently, a few months ago, Wrestling Worlds did suffer a tragedy in the loss of Maverick Matt Bourne, and I know that you guys put together a very wonderful compilation and in honor of his memory. What was it like working with someone like Maverick Matt Bourne as Doink the Clown?
Matt Bourne was an unbelievable talent. He's going to leave a mark on professional wrestling forever. It's one thing when you've seen a talent on television growing up. He was doing the Maniac Matt Bourne gimmick in the early 1980s. He was at WrestleMania 1, and then 8 years later was at WrestleMania 9 as Doink the Clown. So kind of a different kind of shift there, but to see him and see his work ethic, his delivery, even in the latter part of his career, and what unfortunately ended up being the latter part of his life, was an honor and something that I will cherish forever. And I know the entire TCW locker room feels the same. There was a few segments, vignettes that you saw on television. If you go back, and I would encourage anyone that is unfamiliar with Matt and his time in TCW to get on the YouTube channel. You can go to tcwwrestling.com and there's a link to it. But I would get on there and go back and really watch his time as a member of the Bradford family. That is some classic footage that will live forever in those archives. So he was a tremendous talent, and he is surely missed. His last, I may be incorrect here, but I think I'm right. The last match he had as a member of the TCW roster was a part of our international heavyweight title tournament back in earlier part of this year, and he faced Tommy Dreamer. So tremendous matchup there. Great talent, sorely missed.
Yes, indeed. But what have been some of the other bigger talents that you guys have had in TCW in the past? I know you mentioned Tommy Dreamer. I know you have the American Psycho, Lance Hoyt, who unfortunately Trucker Jones is very familiar with and will have to become very familiar with, because somewhere down the road he's going to have to defend the GCW heavyweight title against the American Psycho. So that's going to be something to look forward to. But what about some of the other bigger name talents? Who else have you guys worked with in the past with TCW?
Well, good. First of all, let me wish you, trucker, good luck. I hope your insurance is paid up because Lance Hoyt is definitely a bad man.
Yeah,
TCW.
I already had that option, and it wasn't fun facing him in the tag. Now I got to go against him in the singles. But thanks for reminding me, Billy.
Yeah,
no problem.
I'm not. Hopefully, you're wearing dark pants that night because we don't want to see the results of getting that ring with him. It wouldn't be very pretty, and I'll keep it PG. I'm actually reviewing some of the great superstars that have graced the TCW ring. Just the starters, one of a good friend of mine, one of my best friends in professional wrestling, without question, in my opinion, the greatest tag team wrestler of all time, beautiful Bobby Eaton, is part of the TCW family. Does a lot of behind-the-scenes work, working with all the talent, making them better at what they do. And so that's certainly one. Prior to his official retirement from active competition, he tag teamed with the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, with manager yours truly, as a matter of fact, a part of Midnight Gold. If you want to go through the TCW archives, actually we defeated the New Age Outlaws some years ago in a TCW match. And there's another team, the New Age Outlaws, have graced the squared circle in TCW. Bushwhacker Luke, Carlito, the wrestler formerly known as Gangrel. I'll keep us from getting shut off the air. He has wrestled for TCW. Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express has been here. Really one of the homegrown talents that you'll hear about in the future. He is now a part of the WWE developmental system in Orlando. Is a gentleman by the name of Knuckles Madsen. Look him up on Facebook if you're unfamiliar with him. But he wrestled during his tenure in TCW as Killer Nichols and was a part of the Bradford family. I previously mentioned Hacksaw Jim Duggan. We talked about Tommy Dreamer. The list, Jerry the King Lawler has been to TCW. The list really goes on and on. Another great name that has passed on, General Skandar Akbar, once came to TCW. So really, as you can hear from that list of talent, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, it has really been like the who's who of professional wrestling superstars, legends, and up-and-comers that have been here in TCW. And as a matter of fact, we're going to add to that list coming up our next live event, Friday night, September 6th. It will be Tracy Smothers on the card, Dangerous Doug Gilbert, the Rock and Roll Express, Rob Conway, Dan Severn, and, of course, Lance Hoyt's back. Bobby Eaton will be there. Cerebus of the Bradford family that's had some aliases of another sport in previous lives in professional wrestling. So, yes, certainly TCW is the place to be. Even as commentators, we've had Ken Resnick on our staff in the past, and also Chris Cruz of WCW fame. So I'm the surviving announcer. So Matt Rhodes, if you're listening out there, you better mind your P's and Q's, pal.
Hey, Thompson, I got something I want you to do for me at your next show in Tennessee.
What's that, my man?
Whenever you talk to Ricky Martin, ask him about the Friday night bar show for GCW when that green boy kicked him in the face.
All right, I will relay that message. Does he have your address?
Oh, he got my phone number, so it's okay.
And then, Mr. Thompson, as you said, you've talked about, how you've been right now the surviving commentator in TCW. And now you said, how long have you been with the company?
4 years. I'm a TCW original.
TCW original. Now, have you done anything else with the industry outside of commentating?
Oh yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a manager. I've been a promoter, a talent agent. I still do some of that. I'm still the official talent agent for Bobby Eaton for appearances around the country, around the globe. Promoting, I've ran shows before, ring announced, color commentator, play-by-play man, you name it. I like to say that I've done everything in professional wrestling with the exception of wrestle, ironically enough. And I've had two professional wrestling matches, and let's just say I know that it's on a scale of a 5-star scale would get probably a negative 7-star. So
you want to put on Michael's
probably the best that I hang the boots up.
Sounds like a Michael Cole scale.
Well, I don't know which would be a more gruesome sight, Michael Cole in a pair of tights or me. I'm just saying.
Now, if who would you say, like, when you first got in the business, who would you say was like probably, really, it was your big ambitions? What really got you into the business?
Oh, why did I get started? Man, I grew up, I watched wrestling from the time I was roughly 5, 6 years old. I grew up, at the time, that was when the World Wrestling Federation was taking off on a national scale. Jim Crockett Promotions was still in business, so I was a fan of both of those. So that's primarily the two national promotions at the time that I followed, was just a huge fan. And, honestly, never have had an ambition to be anything other than an announcer. I mean, I never saw myself as a wrestler. I did the same thing all kids do that are fans. I, wrestled with my buddies and stuff like that. But, I mean, as far as that goes, I never had that ambition to actually be a physical wrestler. I always thought of myself as a potential commentator. In my mind, I didn't have the size to be a wrestler at the time. Genetics did not play well to me on that. Not that I'm a small fry by any stretch of the imagination, but, I'm not 6'8", 275 either. And so that is exactly, that's just where it is. I always had that ambition to want to do it. So I've been very fortunate through the years to get those opportunities.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that aspect. A lot of fans do come up to me as well, Mr. Thompson, asking me, how come you don't train to be a professional wrestler? And because I never really saw myself as a professional wrestler, I always saw myself as a pro commentator, and that's the one thing I've always wanted to be in the wrestling industry, is a commentator.
Well, Billy, you know what? We've also seen you throw a chair shot.
Oh, God, don't remind me.
Well, and to that also, I saw myself as a manager as well, and I have had that opportunity as well. So it's kind of a blend between the two opportunities, but definitely never had that vision of being a wrestler. Don't know why that is, but I guess that's there's a market for both wrestlers and commentators and managers.
I wonder if we can get your opinion on some of the other bigger products they have on TV nowadays. And I know just recently there was a major story that came out of Ring of Honor where B.J. Whitmer got injured doing a pile driver on the ring apron. And I just got to ask you, what are your thoughts when you hear such a story like that happening?
It's scary. I saw a photo of it. I haven't seen a video of that. It's really scary. But guys, they put their bodies on the line. They want to take it to the next level. That kind of reminds me, if you go back, there's a couple of times in ECW where Rhino would virtually pile drive someone off the apron through a table. So it's not unprecedented for people to do crazy things, and we all know Mick Foley put his body on the line over the years, and we remember some of the incidents with New Jack and Vic Grimes and some of the crazy things they did. I mean, guys are just – they're looking for that big aha moment, and it's something, I don't necessarily condone it. I mean, the thing is, you want to be in there, you want to have a competitive match, but you don't want someone to leave there injured. And man, that's one of those things where I think you got to use your head. And fortunately, from what I understand, he's okay, and that's really good news. But it could have been a lot worse.
Are there some talent in Ring of Honor that you guys would consider maybe having in TCW?
Oh, well, yeah, there's certainly guys of Ring of Honor. I'm not necessarily. I don't want to speak on behalf of management and name any of them, but I've seen some of the work that they have, and I'm taking nothing away from them. Those guys all work hard, so. But they're under contract to Ring of Honor for those that are certainly off limits. So I don't know if I have anybody in specific that I'd say, I want to look at that guy. That guy needs to be in TCW, but I could see, I could see that opportunity presenting itself.
I think honestly, for me, a dream match on the independents to me would be the American Psycho Lance Hoyt and Kevin Steen. I think that would be a really good match to see. But then again,
could be.
But
I bet my money on Hoyt.
Oh yeah, Hardcore Wrestling Radio himself.
No offense if you're out there listening, Kevin Steen. Lance Hoyt's a bad man.
Well, I'd like to turn over the line of questioning now to the shining star, Rick Starr.
Thank you, Billy. Now, earlier we were talking about, who you would like to see have in wrestling. If you could pull anyone, would you care to repeat your answer?
Yeah. Before we went on the air, I wanted to have Billy in a mask as no, I'm kidding.
Have to get a big mask.
No, I actually reached in. I mean, it almost looks like one of those obvious answers, but Brian Danielson. I had mentioned to the guys here that earlier in my career, I had the opportunity to work for Memphis Championship Wrestling, which at the time was the WWF at the time, developmental territory. So I got to work with Daniel Bryan in his first few years in the wrestling business. Had some tremendous matches in front of 50, 75, 200 people crowds, some bigger crowds in some markets, but that was probably your average Friday, Saturday night weekend of wrestling for that company. So I've seen him in great matches. He's just he's a workhorse, and he did the cut the promo, did the interview last night, or whenever you're hearing this, we're just the night after Monday Night Raw, where he talked about, if he got fired tomorrow, he would be wrestling in a National Guard armory somewhere. And I truly believe that. Just a super guy. And I think, that there's a guy you can certainly build a company around, has shown that he has personality. So I think it's really, really cool. I think he would be a great addition to any organization, and I'm glad to see him getting that opportunity.
Rick?
Sorry, I had my mic off. Wonderful mic. Okay. Now, right now, I don't see a women's division, or at least much of a women's division in TCW. Would you like to have a women's division in TCW, or do you foresee one in the future?
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
Do you foresee a women's division in TCW any time in the near future?
Yes. I'm sorry, you cut it out there for just a moment. We talked about some of the ladies. There's been a female contingent in the past in TCW. You can actually go. I'm gonna do a cheap plug here. On our TCWWrestling.com website, you can go check out some of the ladies that have been on TCW in the past. Miss Natural comes to mind. We've had Mickie James, a number of different female competitors that have graced our squares. Cheerleader Melissa, she's a recognizable name as far as females are concerned. At this time, the only female, the queen of TCW is certainly Lily, and as long as she is in control, I think we'll see her guiding Titan, and that will be our current lady, first lady of TCW. So maybe in the future, there might be some talk of expanding that out and bringing more in, or even, having a division. But for the time being, Lily is where it's at. And Titan, I'm not, since it's not Titan, I'm not trying to hit on your woman. I'm smarter than that. I know you have that taken control, so. Just saying, she's a very lovely lady. How's that?
Now, I'm not sure if you've ever been following what's been happening over in TNA, as far as a lot of people, with them releasing a lot of people. Do you foresee maybe even trying to pick any of them up, or do you just? What are your thoughts on that with all these releases?
To be honest, there's a whole lot of people calling TCW trying to get in. They know it's growing by leaps and bounds. It's a place to be, and so I'm not going to mention any of those specific names, but you can just kind of read between the lines. So, never say never. Just depending on the situation, the talent, the opportunity. When you look at the rosters, there's more spots, or there's more people wanting to get in than there are spots available. So just because Michael Cole calls every week does not mean he's going to steal my spot. It's not happening, boys. We'll fly. We'll have that WrestleMania match, and we'll do it in a TCW ring, and it'd be my hometown crowd. But no, in all seriousness, no. I could see, some of those names I'm aware of that are, I guess, what you would call free agents out there. I think they would be a good potential fit in TCW. Others, maybe not so much, but I'd just say keep watching. You can see some of the. You could look at our next card in Nashville, Tennessee, on September the 6th, loaded, and it's only going to continue from there. You're going to see faces from the past, kind of some of those current level superstars that are somewhat in their prime today, plus the stars of tomorrow. It's really a good mixing pot.
All right, thank you very much. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it over to one of the other guys because I don't know they're net with the buzz for asking questions. I'm going to pass it over to Will. Will, over to you.
How you doing, Brian?
Good, Will. How's it going, my man?
Good. I had a question from another HWR writer who's not on the call, James. I guess he's not here. He wanted to know, can you provide an update on the injury of Mr. Saturday Night Michael Berry?
Yeah, man. I mean, if you watch the television, and it's actually, I believe it's the one up right now, you saw that Mr. Saturday Night had an unfortunate incident on TCW television. I can tell you right now, he's seeing doctors and getting some really valuable opinion on whether or not he should continue to wrestle. I mean, that's one of those things. When you take a shot like that, it jars you not only physically but mentally. And then he's kind of in that phase where he's evaluating and getting the best opinions he can. Has been to St. Louis, looking at that and trying to see what's his future going to be. Is it something he needs to strongly consider? And he's spending some time with his family and it's I don't always you can hear by my commentary. I have been a fan of his in the past. In recent weeks, I don't really care the fact that guys have to look out and pander to the fans. I mean let's be real. I say get the job done in the ring. I like to see people kick each other's butts, but I didn't want to see Michael Berry carted off like that. Young guy, young family, not too far removed from. I don't want to get into his personal life, but not too far removed from some good things in his personal life. And I hated to see that because the man has a passion for professional wrestling. And if he's listening out there, Michael, I hope you're recovering, and we'll have some updates on television pretty soon.
Okay. Well, if James does listen to this, he answered your question. One more question, and I know we talked about this earlier, but if you can ever see yourself in a wrestling ring with another commentator, I don't know if I can say that correct. Who would you want to face, like Michael Cole or Josh Matthews?
Well, you
Who
say
would I want to wrestle?
I will annihilate you where you stand.
Watch out for those chair shots.
So Billy? Are you challenging me?
I'm not challenging anybody. I'm just the fat guy behind the microphone. That's all I am.
No, what it is we're his mouthpiece. That's what it is. When it comes to challenges.
Okay, ding ding, gentlemen, to the corner. So yeah, Brian,
they're writing the checks. They're writing the checks my body can't cash.
Surely.
Well, you're safe, Billy. I won't threaten to want to wrestle you in a what I like to term the end of the promotion match, because when it gets so bad that you got to put me in the ring with another commentator, you might want to just start folding the old tent. But oh my gosh, who would I want to wrestle in a commentators versus commentators match?
I could see you and Todd McKinley.
It wouldn't do good for the ratings.
Maybe you versus Michael Cole or Alex Riley, maybe Josh Matthews.
What about Mike Tenay?
I'm smart enough not to say either Taz or Jerry Lawler. I mean, or even JBL for that matter.
Although as of late, he's done a lot of good charity work. JBL, he does with a lot of his recent climbs he does for charity for WWE.
Right. Now, is this commentator past or present, or am I thinking more along the lines of active today?
Present state.
I will wrestle. Gosh. What chick is a commentator? I mean, Christy Hemme count as a announcer? I mean, you know.
Yeah.
There's Renee Young
in a mud wrestling match.
Don't forget, Brian. There's Renee Young. They just had her for a few weeks. Maybe you can wrestle her.
Well, you know, maybe she wants to wrestle me. Man, I'm going to have to tap out on this one. I'm not sure. I've never really thought about who I'd want to wrestle. You know, typically I'm thinking who, if you had the chance to commentate with as a partner, who might, you know, that sort of line of thinking. But
that was my next question.
Within the company, I'd love to wrestle Tom Simon and slap him around a time or two. That's a given, but.
And okay, and that was my final question. Who would you like to commentate with if you had the power to? If you had to pick any experienced commentator in the world, who would it be?
The world. I mean, obviously, if you're a wrestling fan of any sort, Jim Ross. I mean, He gets no better than that. I mean, I feel like, you know, Matt Rhodes reminds me a lot of a younger Jim Ross. If you go back and listen to a lot of Mid-South and just put those volumes side by side and take a listen. Now, I know Rhodes will be like, you know, he's a humble guy. He's not as pretty as I am, but he's a humble guy. And he's not going to, you know, he's going to, you know, feel like, you know, shouldn't be in the same breath. I don't want to, you know, be in the same breath as Jim Ross, but, you know, that's just Ross was awesome. I mean, Gordon Soley was fabulous, another guy. And my Memphis man on the line will like this comparison, Lance Russell.
Oh, yeah.
So if I had to name three, it would be Jim Ross, Lance Russell, and Gordon Soley. Now, with a side note of, you know, a chance to do if I was just doing straight play-by-play all the time, you know, the chance to commentate with Jim Cornette or Paul Heyman, and them doing their heel side. I mean, you know, they are two commentators that you don't think about. You know, they did commentary at different points in their career as well, in addition to the managing and promoting. If you go back and listen, they were really, really good. And back to it, Chris Cruz, the opportunity to have worked with him was one of the things I will cherish forever in my career. I thought we had a really good chemistry, and he's another guy that's, in my opinion, underrated, not thought of, and whatnot. And of course, Bobby. If I had a chance to commentate with Bobby Heenan, I mean, oh my gosh!
Oh,
you know?
Yes.
You know, I recently had the opportunity to watch the Bobby the Brain Heenan documentary, and I always consider some of his work in WCW to be some of his best commentary work. But to hear that, you know, that he was treated very poorly in that company is just something that boggles my imagination, because when you go back and you hear his commentary during that time, you really couldn't tell that WCW was really mistreating Bobby the Brain Heenan.
You're breaking up, Billy.
What I said was, I recently had the opportunity to watch the documentary on Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh yeah, and then the fact that he was getting treated mis badly, yeah.
Yeah, in WCW, but I really consider his commentary work in WCW to be some of his best work I ever heard as a commentator. And you know, with the way that he was mistreated in WCW, Mr. Thompson, you would never hear that out of Bobby the Brain Heenan on his commentary. He was just so professional, and the way he worked, it was just absolutely amazing that he was able to do that.
You gotta leave it at home, man, and bring it now. Sometimes some of us will get steamed and have to tell you what we think on the air, but as far as the Brain, yeah, he was a pro, no doubt about it.
All right, well, Brian, thank you, and TCW rocks, man. It's good to hear from you, and let it go forward. At least it's better than watching Impact. Yeah, I had to throw it. I had to throw it there. Well, I'm gonna kick it over to someone else who wants to give you some questions. I'll kick it over to Lance.
Brian, how's it going,
Lance? What's up, bud? Good, man. How's it going, Lance?
Pretty good. My first question: how'd you get into the wrestling business?
Oh man, let's back up a few years. 13 years ago, basically. What I had started doing is you're going to enjoy this story, boys. I was going to a promotion called Midwest Renegade Wrestling it's based out of St. Louis, Missouri at the time. They were running shows in the Cape Girardeau, Missouri area. So I was going to a lot of their shows in late 98, early 99, and beyond. Started making friends with some of the people in the company, some of the wrestlers, some of the office staff, that sort of thing. Started my own wrestling website, believe it or not. Back in the days see if you guys remember when Angel Fire had websites, you could make a free Angel Fire website.
Yeah.
So basically I had my own little website that I was doing and doing reports on shows, ironically enough. And had done some stuff for this company, the Midwest Renegade Wrestling Company, and kind of gotten in that way. One way or another, I started even having phone conversations with some of the guys that I had flyered and whatnot to help out as far as putting the promotion over in the region before shows. And then MRW folded. It was a three-man partnership. MRW folded, and two of the partners went one way and one partner went the other. Two of them tried to form an organization. It pretty much was a one-show-and-done event. And then the other partners, I think one partner did that. The other two formed a spinoff called Gateway Championship Wrestling. And I received an email from the promoter saying, I've heard you want to be an announcer. Here's your chance. Step up to the plate. Be in Mexico, Missouri on Saturday, May 20th, 2000 at X time. And here's your shot. Can you make it? And my answer was an emphatic yes. So I drove it was a 5-hour drive, and I drove that drive and ring announced that night. I think the house was 75, 100. It was respectable. And I got in with GCW and started ring announcing for them, and I did a few odds and ends things. They had another guy that ring announced, but his schedule was kind of up and down because he does a sports show in St. Louis, so he wasn't always available. So we kind of tag teamed it at times, or he couldn't be there and I would be there, or if he was there, I would film matches or whatever they asked me to do. And so we picked up some local access television, and so I was actually available in about 1 million households in the St. Louis metropolitan area on their TV. And as a side note, I broke in at the same time with Delirious and Evan Bourne, Matt Seidel. So I started in the business with them, same promotion that they started in. And from that point on, I about 9 months in, I had a chance to try out for Memphis Championship Wrestling, which was WWF Developmental at the time, and got that gig as a ring announcer. So that's when I got to work with Brian Danielson, Mean Street Posse, Lance Cade, Umaga, the late Umaga, Steve Bradley. The list goes on and on of guys, and off to the races we go. And that's kind of my break there over the first kind of year of my wrestling career. That's how I got started. So sort of kind of got started doing the internet thing, and it led to some connections. And lo and behold, they gave me a shot. So I was very fortunate to get in that way.
For those who don't know, who are the champions in TCW?
Our current champions. Your TCW heavyweight champion is Lance Hoyt. The TCW tag team champions are the Hounds of Hell. That's Cerebus and Roosevelt. Your international champion is the 7'2" monster Titan. And your current TCW junior heavyweight champion is John Saxon. And I'll tell you what, really good roster of champions. John Saxon is involved in a best-of-7 series with Kincaid for that junior heavyweight title. So that thing's like a hot potato. It could change by the day who's the champ. between Kincaid and John Saxon. So you just have to keep watching each week on TCW to see who's in control of that one.
And my final question is, who inspired you to be a commentator, or who are some of your influences as a commentator?
Oh, yeah, back to Jim Ross, man. I always thought Ross, was really good in earlier days, not in the late WCW days, but back in the Crockett days. I thought Tony Schiavone was solid back in those days. Again, Lance Russell, but really more so Lance Russell later on. But really, Ross was it. I mean, he was a very good influence as far as wanting to be a commentator and an announcer. I mean, it gets no better than that. And he could still go. I miss him on being on there, each week. No offense to Michael Cole, who I think has Michael Cole is not that bad. I mean, I remember earlier Michael Cole I thought was really good back in the day, and I think there's a little bit of that time where he was doing something different I wasn't a big fan of, but I think he's solid. So.
Well, thank you, and now I'm gonna kick it back to Billy.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on the Michael Cole sentiment. I think one of the main things that happened was, when you take your play-by-play commentator and you turn him heel, I really don't think it was Michael Cole's fault at that time, Mr. Thompson, but I think maybe would you consider it to be a case of over-trying, like overselling, like, I'm a heel, look at me, I'm a heel. Would you consider that to be a case as to why Michael Cole's heel gimmick kind of failed?
Well, I mean, it's what the office probably wanted. So I mean, I wasn't in that situation to know. I mean, if you're paid to do a job at the end of the day when you perform. If you're within reason, obviously, I'm not running out there naked. Thank God. But within reason, when you're brought into and you're paid by an organization, a organization of quality, in which obviously WWE is. You do what you're told, and if it's kind of one of those things with if the office is happy, then why are you and you're doing it to what they want, and it works. Whether or not I believe it's a good spot for him or a good way of utilization of him. I'm not as let me put it this way: Brian Thompson personally was not as big a fan of that as I was some of his commentary, especially his earlier days like Taz on SmackDown. I thought they had a really good chemistry. A few years ago. So, I mean, I don't know. It depends on your definition of whether or not it failed. I mean, they obviously got a WrestleMania match out of it. Now, let me say this. I thought some of the stuff with Michael Cole and Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler and their little feud there and was some of the funniest crap. when I saw Jim Ross schoolboy Michael Cole, I died laughing. And, it was one of those times where I feel like that's part of the things that's missing in the world today is that humor. And it wasn't intended to be funny, but it was hilarious to me seeing Jim Ross schoolboy him and then get low blowed. And then, or actually, I think I'm trying to remember what happened. I think he low blows Jack Swagger, and then he gets he low blows Swagger, and then Michael Cole schoolboys him, hooks and tights, 1, 2, 3. It was just classic stupidity, but it was one of those things that what the wrestling business at times is all about, having fun and laughing at ourselves. So that was some fun stuff a couple of years ago. And, here's a trivia thing for you. I remember that was around the time Lawler was getting a lot of TV time and a lot of matches, which was rare. Leading into that WrestleMania match with Cole, he wrestled The Miz at the No Way Out pay-per-view, I think, that year. He may have jumped in the Rumble and got chunked out in 30 seconds. And it seems like they had the tag match, the pay-per-view after that. If you look back, that was the most number of pay-per-views in a row that Lawler wrestled going back to 1995, I think, was when he came in and was a little bit more active as a wrestler. So look at that time span. Then it was kind of ironic that Lawler wrestled that many matches in a row. So I'm sure he enjoyed the extra money.
What were some of the reactions? A lot of people consider this being like a big point of Monday Night Raw. What were some of your reactions when you saw Jerry the King Lawler and that night that he had that heart attack?
Man, it was pretty shocking. I remember I was actually doing double duty. I was on my computer, and I had in my living room, the way it faces the television is to my back if I'm looking at the computer screen, and I was listening to all the commentary. I'm like, man, Lawler hasn't talked for an awkward amount of time. And DVR days, you can go back, well, wait a minute, and it didn't dawn on me exactly what happened. Then I went back and rewound it and could hear in his headset, him gasping for the air or whatever that sound was, just one of those eerie sounds. And my radio was like, what the heck, this is bad. And then knowing that, it didn't look good at the time, my phone blows up because, I've worked around Jerry for, he's in this area of the Mid-South where I'm at, in the general Memphis, Tennessee area. A lot of people were hitting me up, hey, have you heard? And then, I was getting word from friends of friends that talked to his son, Brian Christopher, and they're like, man, it doesn't look good, and this and that. It was a chaotic night there for a few hours. It was like, wow, this is bad. But he was very fortunate to be where he was, and ironically enough, I was on a show with him about six or 7 weeks later, and dude, you wouldn't have known that he had anything wrong with him.
Oh, definitely. But I want to take you back to what you were talking about with John Saxon and Kincaid, this best of 7 series over the TCW Junior Heavyweight title. Can you, for fans who aren't familiar, can you tell us how this best of 7 series came about between these two?
Well, there was a matchup several months ago it actually started out. Kincaid was one of the longer running junior heavyweight champions we had. He had defeated a gentleman in Memphis, Tennessee, ex-Cal, and then had held on to the title for quite some time. John Saxon came in and defeated Kincaid, and just really emotional moment. John Saxon, kind of a lot of his personal life came out in this. He's had one of his sons had a life-threatening injury a number of years ago, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, and had survived that. So it's real emotional. Saxon wanting to represent and win that championship. Saxon has had 20-plus years in the wrestling business, and this is kind of that last huge opportunity for him to showcase his talents to a national stage, and a lot on the line. So it was a really emotional moment when Saxon won the title. And the quality of that match was just unbelievable. I'd put it up against anything around the country, around the planet. And so, the board of directors and everyone said, hey, look, we've got a diamond in the rough here. These two guys can go, and let's give them a chance to go, and let's make it a best-of-7 series, and a little bit of a unique best-of-7 series. A lot of times you think back to series that have happened, such as Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff in the 80s, Chris Benoit in the 90s. And usually those are a series where they wrestle the entire series out, and the last man standing at the end, whomever gets the 4 wins first, is champion. In this series, it's actually a series of 7 potential title matches, and every time they wrestle, the title's on the line, so it could theoretically could have changed hands 7 times over the series, so that may or may not end up being the final case, but that's kind of how it came to be, and it's gotten more and more personal as the Bradford family has tried to really do damage to Saxon in a number of ways. So it's been a really good series. It's gonna be one of those to look back on and say, yeah, that was cool, and I was there at some of those matches. So,
well, just recently, as your last show, TCW debuted a new talent by the name of Americos. How would you describe Americos?
Well, first of all, Americos made me mad by the lights going out and I couldn't see anything, and I trying to keep Matt Rhodes from trying to take advantage of the situation. But anyway, be that as it may, Americos comes in and decides he's going to pick on the Empire, which is not, in my opinion, is not a very smart move. And so I have my suspicions just exactly who Americos is. I was informed by the office not to mention it before I came on the air here tonight. But Americos obviously is a young up-and-coming talent and has a lot of high-impact maneuvers and a lot of speed, a lot of agility. and seems to really be getting the crowd behind him. So we'll see if he has a long-term or a short-term future. I just wish he would show us his face for 1 second. You could put the mask back on. You may be so ugly we don't want to see you, but I don't like somebody sneaking in, shutting the lights off on me while I'm trying to do my job and then jumping in the ring when the lights come back on.
Well, without saying his name, I think we could all agree on who that suspicion might be, but we'll just leave it at that.
Oh, definitely. And
well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
But as a side question, Mr. Thompson, as a side question is now, I don't know if it was just a case of coincidence or if they're related, but is there any relation between Steve and Greg Anthony?
No relation.
So
good question, though. No relation.
It's kind of like that Ole and Arn Anderson type of deal, right?
Well, I mean, they were like they were promoted as cousins, but there's no relation there between those two. If you want to go back and dig through the archives, find a matchup where those two went at it. They had a heck of a matchup a few years ago, 1-on-1 in TCW.
Okay, it was just
everything's cool now.
Yeah. It was just something I was very curious about because I noticed they both had the same last name and they kind of looked alike in a sense. But anyway, I'd like to turn over the line of questioning. I'd like to turn over the line of questioning now to the GCW Heavyweight Champion. He's # Bully of the Year. He is the Big Mother Trucker Jones. Trucker, you're on the line with Brian Thompson of TCW.
How's it going, Brian?
Good, Trucker. How you doing, my man?
Oh, no. I'm just curious because I see TCW surround themselves by some good veterans, and by that I say Bobby Eaton, Lance Hoyt, Steve Anthony, John Saxon, Tim Storm. Most of them guys I was able to get a chance to work with either on the card or actually in a match before. But who would you say is the up-and-comers as far as younger talents?
Oh man, the list goes on and on. I mean, we just talked a minute ago about Americos, and he's I see a lot of potential in him. I see, we mentioned another veteran is certainly Cerebus. I think Bobo could have a heck of a career. But in all seriousness, he could. Kincaid, I see the sky's the limit with that guy. You talk about a unique, unorthodox individual. He most certainly is. You can't forget it. He's kind of falls. He's been around a while. The Mr. 5.5 Matt Riviera. Never going to take anything away from him. You can't certainly classify him as an up and comer. He's already came up the ladder, but he's still a shining star, still young. It's not like we're talking about an older man here. He's still got a lot of fire in the tank, baby. I promise you that. Scott Phoenix, Sigmund, Roosevelt. The list goes on and on. Steve Anthony, you mentioned he's been around a while. Vordell Walker has been on TCW television in recent weeks. So certainly we have a whole lot of young guns that are on board, and I think we'll see more coming. So.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably never going to get booked with TCW after that little thanks to Billy for what me and another wrestler said on a interview that he did. Thanks, Billy. But,
I have to go back and hear that.
You don't want to, especially if Matt Rivera hears. I know he ain't going to like it, but
oh boy.
But yeah, as far as I ain't gonna lie, when I first seen the product, I didn't hear nothing of TCW until Scott Phoenix told me about it. Because me and Scotty had a bunch of matches down here in Louisiana, as far as from all the way from Lafayette to New Orleans and down in Houma. But I never heard nothing of TCW until he told me. Then I'm like, well, y'all got a TV deal. Let me check it out. Now, I looked at the first show, and I ain't gonna lie. First show, I wasn't a fan. I was like, I tried to sit back as far as separate myself as a worker and watch it as a fan. I couldn't grasp just because there was no introduction to the storylines. But I didn't know it went off of the internet series that y'all was doing. So once I got more background, it made more sense to me. And really, that's the only thing that I would say I had a bad taste in my mouth about it at first. was whenever y'all got the national TV deal with Cox Communications, and I seen the first show. I started scratching my head like, all right, there's no introduction. Who the hell is this Bobo kid? Who's Matt Riviera? I never heard of him before. But
well, we were certainly picked up in midstream. We already had a number of television deals underway, so some of those things kind of pop up fast, and you have to have already something ready for them. So I can see where if you've never seen it, it might take a minute to get acclimated. If you'll notice on current show, we've actually evolved the presentation. So if you'll notice on we have a little beginning to try to introduce you to some of the things that are happening, especially from the week before. A lot more video packages, and in the future there is some talk of doing some recap, because that's a valid point. Hopefully each week we're adding a new viewer to our viewing audience, so certainly there'll be an opportunity to kind of catch them up to speed on what's been going on. So, but hey, it's different tastes for different folks, man. It's one of those things where it's just like any time where you might watch any of the other products on a national scale, whether it be WWE or TNA or anything, and you may like one week, but it may not like another. So I mean, it's kind of it's kind of one of those things. But
and the thing I will say that I do like about TCW is I trained with guys down here in Houma, Louisiana, and down in New Orleans. So
I've heard some stories about
down here is more the old school mentality, as far as you work like this, you do that. It's not all the flashy stuff like WWE and TNA. But what I like is TCW got a mix of it, as far as the young guys coming up with the flashy stuff, but wrestling the old school way. And that's one thing I give TCW props about.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to appeal to that kind of demographic that likes wrestling, that likes that style. So that's who we're going for sure.
Yeah, and you go ask John Saxon about Houma, Louisiana, he'll have a bunch of stories about that.
Oh, trust me, I've heard some stories. I've heard stories from Bobby Eaton about Houma. I mean, Houma is a home in of itself.
Oh yeah, that was the time. I'm gonna cut quick to the story. I was wrestling down there at the time with a feud with Scott Phoenix for Mid-South Wrestling Entertainment, and it was me and 3 other guys was in the ring cutting a promo. Was part of a faction called the Dark Alliance, and we had 5 fans jump the barricades and tried to get into the ring. And I looked at one of the ring guys. I looked at him. I told him, give me a fucking chair. He slid me a chair. Next thing I know, I'm looking at him like, come on, motherfuckers, get in the ring. They hurt. They look at each other. They get off the ring apron. And, well, Billy, you know how Psycho Mike is. Psycho grabbed the mic, just start cutting another big promo. There was times where I had to fight myself out of them buildings. And I'm not talking about workers. I'm talking about with the fans. It's a whole nother breed, and that's the kind of wrestling I admit that I miss, because you ain't gonna find a rowdier crowd or type of people from that end than anywhere else.
I do remember one instance, Psycho Mike referring to one of our fans as a quote, a busted up can of biscuits.
That was at a bar show, so that wasn't a good idea to give Psycho Mike the open mic at a bar show where he was uncensored. I still kind of regret that match.
Well, Mr. Thompson, a tradition that we always ask our guests, whether it be a commentator or a professional wrestler who we interviewed in the past, we always ask him if you have like any funny road stories that you would be able to share with us tonight.
I like that you would be able to share with us tonight. Backline, because that's good.
Hey, gotta cover that flat line.
Man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Oh man, I'm trying to think of what would be funny to y'all, but not that I've had happen to me. But it wouldn't be. It was one of a lot of things are funny to you, but they're not funny to everybody else when you tell them. I've had so many stories of Bobby Eaton, it's not even funny. We've been stranded at 3:00 in the morning with a blown out tire near Nashville, Tennessee, a mile from our exit. We ribbed him one time. We had a guy. We'd pull up this store in Nashville, that Bobby would like to go to on our way back from a trip on a weekend, and this guy tried to hitch a ride. And so myself and Bobby's son are in the car, and we're like, "Hey, man, you need to ask that 6-foot blonde guy that comes out there if he could. Ask him if it's okay to ride along with us." Bobby comes out and tells the guy, "No, man, we're going the opposite way." The guy gets angry at Bobby and basically starts being a smart aleck to him and says, "I'll see you on the side of the road someday." And then Bobby realized once he got in the car that we had stooged him off and told the guy to ask him. He said, "You knew that guy?" "Yeah, we put the heat on you, man."
Oh my God!
Gosh, I have the record for traveling with Bobby to his shortest booking, which is about a mile from where we were staying, and his longest booking, we drove 26 hours from Jonesboro, Arkansas to Carteret, New Jersey for an autograph session in 2004, and that was a trip where I was like, why in the world did I not take the plane ticket from the promoter? But I was 23 years old and I wanted an adventure, so we did it.
Wow.
Fortunately, I don't have a lot of the wild and crazy stories. I've tried to shy away from some of that stuff. I won't name a wrestler. We were at a hotel, and one wrestler that likes to talk was talking, and I swear I took a nap, and 2 hours later I woke up and he was still in the same story from 2 hours before when I dozed off.
Wow.
And this is a name quality guy. Let's see. Oh man, it's been a fun ride. I'm trying to think of anything good because most of the time Bobby and myself are pretty lame. Traveling, we try to stay under the radar. I could tell you a girlfriend story, but if she heard an ex-girlfriend story, if she heard that, she'd probably come back and beat me up again.
Again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't want to piss off
anyone. Do what now?
I said you don't want to piss off a woman. Trust me, I was married for 23 years.
This is good looking, but she's tough, man, and she's proved it to me before, so I'm not going there.
I don't blame you. Don't blame you.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of any good ribs. We've had some good ribs over time. We basically got a tape of a business partner of mine doing basically having a good time with a lady, and decided to set it up to play it in the locker room, and needless to say he was pretty embarrassed that night. That's what night vision. Don't be doing anything out of line in your car when a night vision camera's near you. But yeah, let's just put it to you that way. But for the most part, it's been pretty lame. I'm trying to think. There's got to be a couple of other Eaton stories that I'm forgetting, because like I said, we've done a lot of miles on the road. He'd probably tell me something funny that I've forgotten totally, but anyways, those were a couple.
Got a pretty good rib for you. Person who trained Stay in Sweet Stand, we was wrestling in Houma, and he's a type where he tries his best, and nobody can make him break character as far as in the ring. And he did this thing as far as he'll start going to a rest spot, and then next thing you know, some music start playing, so he'll start fighting and dancing to the music at the same time. So I already knew he always danced to Baby Got Back. So I was at my house, and I know he can't stand Chris Jericho. He absolutely hates his guts. So I'm playing on my computer, and I edit, baby, got back into going to the intro to Chris Jericho's music. I get to the building early. I tell the DJ here, if he asks for some music, this is all you got. And he actually tried changing it, but he couldn't. So middle of the match, he's doing his thing. I'm looking through the curtain watching. I told all the boys in the back, hey, watch this. And the music started playing. He started busting a move. Next thing you know, all you hear is break the walls down. He flips out, completely breaks character, and starts cursing at the DJ. Turn that fucking shit off, blah, blah, blah. Comes back to the back. He sees me sitting in the corner laughing my ass off. All the boys in the back laughing. He comes up to me and said, you know what?
Damn.
All I'm going to tell you is I used to go on the road with Dusty Wolf, and I'm gonna get you back. I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that was 2 years ago. He still never got me back yet, so I know it's going to be a good
coming.
This man.
He's forgotten it until he hears this, and he's gonna remember. You got one coming.
Oh no,
there.
he hasn't forgotten. Trust me.
Oh.
Every time I see him, he makes sure I haven't forgot. I'm just trying to make sure I don't get in a match with him anytime soon where he try to sugar me. I know that's what he's gonna do.
Wow.
Rick, I understand you still have you got some more questions for Brian Thompson?
Well, again, what I wanted to talk about real quick was we were talking earlier about how Jim Ross, when he was turning heel, and how it just wasn't working for him. And I wanted to talk more about like wrestlers and gimmicks, and sometimes how they just don't always work for them. And because they're usually placed in there by creative. If you're looking back, I'll give you a perfect example. If we look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he was a ringmaster, that character just did not work for him. And if they had never said, just let him say, okay, fine, let him do his own thing and let him just be be Austin or be Stone Cold, he probably would have never been the superstar he is today. Do you think that is do you think a lot more industries should do that, or do you think that's a bad idea? What are your thoughts on that?
I think. Well, I mean, it's a lot of times the best characters are typically the extension of oneself. So, if someone just cannot totally buy into the character or whatever they're doing, it's hard for it to be successful. I mean, but at the same time, at one time, none of us would have seen Dustin Rhodes as Goldust, and Goldust becoming the biggest thing he ever did in his career. You would have thought Dustin Rhodes is going to be Dustin Rhodes, and that's what he's going to do, natural Dustin Rhodes. But same thing with Dusty and the polka dots. I mean, there's some things that just you do them, and if you're good enough talent, you can take whatever character you're given and typically make it work, but you've got to be able to believe in it. But unfortunately, it sounds like there's going to be those cases where the guy just can't believe in it to the fullest effect. So and it flops. I mean, for one reason or another. But in those cases where a guy can kind of be the extension of himself, that's when it's going to have the most effect.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm not as you notice me. I'm a little more serious now on television. That's more of an extension to me than trying to be a little bit funny. So that's where I'm going. That's where I feel like that's my mood, my mindset right now.
All right. And again, Trucker was talking about how like fans was jumping jumping the cage, jumping the fence. Now, Randy Orton actually had something that similar happened down in South Africa. What do you think about when fans jump the barricades and attack wrestlers? What's your take on that? Why does that happen? What do you think that happens?
Well, I think there's a difference today versus when things like that would happen, 20, 30 years ago, and really more so 30 years ago as I mentally do the math. But they would jump the guardrail because they were so incensed and they were so into what was happening that they wanted to physically harm Randy Orton because he beat up my hero, and I want to save my hero, or I want to save Ricky Morton or Robert Gibson or the Fantastics or whomever we're talking about. And they wanted to beat up the Midnight Express that bad because of what they just did to the Fantastics. And trust me, Bobby shared some Homa and Louisiana stories with me along those lines of having to fight every night. I think now it's and based on what I've heard about that story, people do stupid stuff like that for the attention. Look at me, I snuck over a guardrail. Somebody in this venue is going to be filming it with a camera phone, no matter how many times they post it on the walls outside the arena or tell you before the event to do not video record this. So I think, it's a different era. As far as fan jumping around, I would say there's always going to be someone in Timbuktu, Houma, Louisiana, that's going to end up trying to get at a performer because they believe, and they feel that way. I think, but unfortunately nowadays there's a lot of idiots out there that will do that because look at me, I'm going to get the attention. Similar, there was a time, I believe, on an ECW pay-per-view where the XPW guys tried to cause a stir and got the crap beat out of them and handed to them or something one time in Los Angeles. So, speaking of home, I know a lot of the TCW talent you've mentioned before is at Pro Wrestling Elite. It's kind of somewhat of a farm system because, a lot of talent's coming out of there. So if you're listening in Louisiana area, if you're going to check out something down there, that might be a good place to check out and enjoy. You never know when I might show up. Never say never. I'm going to be scouting talent to find the next superstar in professional wrestling, or I may just simply be there to call a couple matches. I might even trail over to your GCW, Billy, and look for you. Maybe we may have that. If I want to put GCW out of business, I got one way I'm going to do it. That's me against you in the ring. You want to talk about scaring the people off? We'll make enough money. We'll make them pay to leave.
I'm gonna chime in as far as like having fans jump barricades. I don't know how the commission is in Arkansas, but we had commissioners down here in Louisiana tell us that if a fan jumps a barricade, don't touch them unless they try to get into the ring. Now, if they're stupid enough to get inside the ring, inside them ropes, then it's fair ball game. As far as there was a couple of times in my move, I was with the fans' ass because he got in the ring and he was coming after me. It was me against Flip in the hardcore match series, and he jumped the barricade. I'm like, what the hell? The next thing I know, I see him in the ring, so I went to smoke him with a chair, and thank God security grabbed his legs and pulled him out because I was swinging for the fences. I was going to knock his ass out. But it's sad to see fans. I mean, it's good as far as drawing heat. I ain't gonna lie. I love it when I can see I'm drawing that much heat. I'm having people wanting to make death threats and want to fight me. Hey, I'm doing my job. But it's also kind of frowned upon because, I mean, we all know how it is.
Now, I have one last question. Sorry. Now, I do have one last question, and it did pertain to like people like you bringing camera phones or iPods, whatever, into like shows. Because a lot of people, like you said, it says like you can't bring these devices in. And I can understand for like big companies like WWE or maybe even TNA, they don't want them there because it's all copyrighted material. But wouldn't you think that maybe for like the smaller companies, they would probably welcome that in because be that way of help spreading out the word or spreading out your company?
It's kind of a mixed bag, we're maybe in the early stages, but as you start, you got to remember when you're dealing with television, you're not just to yourself. You have different contracts, and for you're dealing with television stations that want your product to be an exclusive product. So you theoretically, the best thing to do is say no, because again, you run the risk of hurting yourself. It's no different than any performer or any concert or any kind of thing like that, to where they adhere to the same rules. When you start having as things like this grow and you have multiple television partners, they don't definitely want to see something that they're invested in being on a camera phone somewhere. So it's kind of one of those balance. You have to find a balance there. I mean, I see your point. It's kind of at first it's a way to help establish your brand to new people, but as you get to a point to where you're getting to this kind of level, you're graduating to another stage, so to speak. You definitely want to control that kind of thing.
Understandable.
Because the problem is people abuse. Give someone an inch, they take the mile. That's the old saying, and that's just the way it is. They go from sign this autographed picture for me. I can't afford it. Okay, kid. Hey, you see that picture on eBay tomorrow night for $20. You know,
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. You see where I'm going with that?
Absolutely. You know, and like I said, I didn't even think about it, until what you said, the television, once the partner's an exclusive. It never even dawned on me.
I mean, and I may be, overanalyzing that to some degree, but you got to be very careful. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and giving us this time. And I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but it's been an absolute, a treat talking with you.
Yes, Mr. Thompson, once again, can you give us the rundown, the lineup for TCW, where fans can view in their areas, where they can check you out?
Yes, absolutely. Let me pull up and make sure I don't miss any of the marquee players here. But of course, on a nationwide basis, every Friday night, 1 a.m. Eastern Time, midnight Central on the Pursuit channel. It is channel 393 on Dish Network, channel 604 on DirecTV. You can certainly see us there. And we are also in many states in the South on Cox Sports TV. That takes us all over the place in the South, so I'm sure that's where a lot of you guys on the line tonight get us. So that is on every Friday night at 11 p.m. Central Time, midnight Eastern for those affiliates that may cross over in the Eastern Time Zone. And then we're also on a number of different markets. We're on Tough TV, which is on a digital tier nationwide as well in many markets. Tubetown in the Arkansas markets. KOZL, and that is one of the stations in the Missouri market up in Springfield and Joplin in that area. Also, we're on a lot of places. KSN, another one of those Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas markets for us as well, Arkansas. WTOK is where a lot of folks in the Mississippi market see us. That's an affiliate down there, MyTOK2. And I think that's the rundown. But for the official rundown, for more on that, tcwwrestling.com, there's a tab, there's a link at the top that says TV. Follow one of the windows that come down below that, and you can get the entire listing of both the local affiliates that carry TCW plus the Cox Sports Television affiliates that pick it up. So, and again, it goes over Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and a few other states, and crosses over, I believe, into some. Louisiana. I'll run down these states that are CST affiliates: Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Texas. It's picked up Texas, Florida, Virginia, Georgia picks it up, Oklahoma, and Missouri. So you can see several states there, 8 states, I believe that was. So Cox Sports is putting us in a lot of homes as well. TCWWrestling.com, again, also you can watch it on there, uploaded every Monday around 10 p.m. Central Time as well. So a lot of options, and be watching as well. There's a couple of different apps. I don't have the information right here in front of me, but a couple of different apps on your phone where you can actually watch the show live as it happens if you don't get it on the Dish or DirecTV option through Pursuit channels. So, and growing, I understand there's a few other affiliates, a few other stations, so a lot of eyeballs on TCW and wanting to add it to their television lineup. So the best is it's only just begun.
Wonderful.
Well, exactly. Well, Brian Thompson of Traditional Championship Wrestling, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Man, glad to do it, and hope to be back on again in the future. And thanks for following and covering TCW. And let me tell you, I do not care. And with that said, I want to say this to close it. Just because I've came on your internet radio show doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to like your opinion. Okay? Got that?
Well, the little show's called Hardcore Wrestling Radio.
What?
Hardcore Wrestling Radio. That's the name of the little show.
Talks about hardcore wrestling. Hardcore wrestling is getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and going 26 hours to be at the next TCW live event. That's what I do. That's hardcore to me, punk. Now,
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Starr is the host of Hardcore Wrestling Radio. Rick, where can fans check you out on HWR?
Of course, they can always check me out on my Facebook page, where you can also find the latest episodes of TCW Wrestling over at facebook.com/Hardcore Wrestling Radio. And if you ever want to listen to shows, including this show, with our featured guest Brian Thompson, check us over at Spreaker.com/HWR Media.
All right, and Lance, what can fans expect to see when they come visit your channel over on YouTube.com/LanceMossTV?
Wrestling reviews, album reviews, NASCAR reviews, and whatever else pops into my head.
The Bay Area MVP, known as Will, is over on the hood, over on Instagram. Will, what you got coming up?
All this week, I'll be promoting BigJohnPCGames.com with the creator of Big John 06 himself. He's doing his thing. And, Brian, one more thing. You think you give us a shout-out next time you're on the air on TCW?
I might just have to do that. I might just have to mention that there's a bunch of punks that want to keep me up on a Tuesday night when I need my beauty sleep and I should be laying in a bed, maybe next to a beautiful woman, and yet they're sitting here ragging me with questions and making me lose my beauty sleep. So if I have bags under my eyes, I want you punks to know it's all your fault.
I'm going to be sending a message
to someone better, so it's all good.
I'm going to be sending a message to Titan that beautiful woman you want to lay down next to is Lily.
Whoa, hey! Oh, I was just playing, man. Calm down over there. We're all friends here, right?
All right, and also, ladies and gentlemen, coming up August 31st, GCW presents the Back to School Brawl. Trucker Jones, you still have you had any idea, any inclination as to who you're going to be facing out of GCW?
They still haven't got to me, told me who I'm going to face, but I know in February I got to defend my heavyweight title against Lance Archer, which is going to be pretty interesting.
You mean you got a sealed date in February for that?
Yeah.
I'm impressed. What happened to the 30-day rule? Is that the 300-day rule or something there on a title defense? I'm impressed.
I pulled political stroke to have it pushed back, so yeah.
I'm impressed. Well, I tell you what, you better eat a lot of Wheaties between now and then, because that is a bad apple, and he's not he can get in foul moods. Trust me on that.
I already know, trust me. I've fought him in a tag match, and I already know.
I wish you all the best.
And
Awesome.
And fans, also don't forget to like.
If you want Brian, I'll leave you a ticket at the door.
Well, I tell you what, anybody listening can go ahead and send me the cards and flowers. I'll be sure to get them to the funeral home on behalf of Trucker here. He's going in with Lance Hoyt.
On that note, fans, also don't forget to like the Facebook page of WGS TV, which is facebook.com/WGS TV, and also don't forget to please subscribe to youtube.com/WrestleGamer, youtube.com/ZepThanks TV Network, and also don't forget to check out HWR over on Spreaker.com/HWR Media. Be sure you follow Rick Starr and all the guys over there as well. So thank you to Brian Thompson from TCW, and also to the Illuminous One, the Shining Star, Rick Starr, the Big Mother Trucker himself, Trucker Jones, for the Bay Area MVP known as Will, and for the incomparable Lance Moss from Lance Moss TV. I'm the Wrestle Gamer, Double B, Billy Boudreaux, saying thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Hardcore Wrestling Radio. Be sure to follow us on our pages, facebook.com/Hardcore Wrestling Radio and Spreaker.com/HWR Media, and also on youtube.com/HWR Show. Until the next time, this is Rick Starr saying see you when we see you.